All right, y'all. Leland Live, Talk 99.5 as we get on down the road here. My friend Gary Palmer and my congressman in studio with us, also on your ballot tomorrow. Going to bring him into the conversation here in about 2 minutes. Allen and Company bringing you the show today. That's the Thompson family. They're over in Vestavia. From time to time, we're going to wind up in a jewelry store, whether guys want to or not. You're going to be there. And there are lots of reasons to go in between because you've got to do maintenance. We wear this stuff, so we break it, we get it dirty, stones go missing. Sometimes we got to get things resized. And this is a family-owned, two-generation business that's just there for you with all that stuff. Allen is a custom jeweler, so he can design, create, come up with anything you want. Sometimes people get weird. I mean, it's just there's something very symbolic for you or your boo that you want to have made into something beautiful. He can do that for you. Or you want to select from one of the incredible pieces that he has there already made and ready to go, whether it's a holiday engagement or, fellas, maybe she's put up with you for a long time and it's time to upgrade that ring. I'm looking at Gary right now. Ann, I hope Ann's listening. So she's put up, how long did she put up with you? 30?
Well, counting dating, almost 45 years.
45 years of putting up with Gary. It's time to step up, Gary. Allen and Company will get that ring upgraded. Even on a congressional salary, you should be fine. It's Allen and Company in Vestavia. Nothing like putting you on the spot right off the bat.
Honey, I'm listening.
See, she's listening. She knows what time it is. Gary, how you been, man?
We've been busy. We're trying to get as much done as we can these last few weeks before we shut down for the elections.
Have you ever had to run back? I mean, you haven't had to run back to back like this. It's the weirdest thing.
I've never had to run two primaries, yeah.
And I was just talking to Amy, and I had no idea we all had a Briarwood connection, too. I didn't even talk to her about that. But so you got this one. You just had one, and now you got to turn right around for the general. Do you even have a Democrat that signed up for?
Yeah, there's I think 3 in the Democratic primary.
Okay, so
and
we'll sort all that out.
One of them is one of the socialists.
Oh, we got a socialist?
Yeah, I think there's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, that should be fun. I hope they win and you get to go have that debate.
Yeah, that wouldn't be much of a debate.
I've been on fire about Fauci since I've walked in the door because that news was breaking when we came in. By now, you've heard all that's been revealed. I thought the Senate investigation was just going to be futile because of the pardon. I've gotten old and cynical about everything y'all do up there. But it turned out pressing him and subpoenaing these records at least is getting it on the record that those of us who were skeptical were right. Those who weren't, that just got fooled because they were too trusting, were not wrong as well because they were just fooled. And we're at a moment right now where there's got to be some accountability. What do you think that is? Well,
I'm hoping, particularly in light of what has just been released and Fauci knowing the dangers that the vaccines pose to pregnant women, that I think there's 17 states attorneys general that are looking at prosecuting him under state laws. I hope that goes through because his pardon doesn't cover that.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that he faces civil consequences.
You'd have to think the revelation today, there's cause and effect. We know there was fraud. We know he had one opinion but publicly stated something in the public position, according to reports, was causing harm. Mm-hmm. There have to be people listening and finding this out today that had miscarriages in that zone. You don't have kids in that age range that were that are childbearing age, and so we relate on that. How heartbreaking to think that thing your doctor told you were crazy, it wasn't the vaccine. Might have been the vaccine. You might have lost a child over it.
Well, he's done irreparable harm to public confidence in government across the board, not just in the healthcare space. And the thing that it's even more troubling is that he has benefited personally from this.
Yeah.
I mean, he has made millions of dollars from this. So, as we were talking earlier, I said he needs to go to jail and the poorhouse. I think he ought to be subject to civil litigation because he benefited from this, and he's known all along. And the other thing too, Leland, is that people need to take note of the fact that his pardon goes all the way back to 2014. That's when the National Institutes for Health were making these grants, and federal law prohibits any federal money going toward gain-of-function research. That's what they were doing in the Wuhan lab.
And he did it through the CIA. He was using the CIA as a cutout.
Well, and he was also doing it through Echo Health.
Yep.
And then Echo Health was making grants to other research organizations to do the gain of function. So they were trying to pass it through enough layers that nobody would pick up on it. So he knew exactly what they were doing. And that by itself is criminal, but he got a pardon. But I think that ought to be taken into consideration in regard to the harm it did to people, not just to pregnant women, but to other people who had one of my colleagues in Congress is a doctor, and he said there is no question that this has caused myocarditis, a heart condition, in probably millions of people.
So you just made me think of something that's a bigger picture, and I don't want to get away from Fauci too far. And I know you're here to talk about your candidacy, but this is part of it. You're already in Congress. But it just, right when you were talking, it occurs to me that so much of our government now, they're doing an end run around our civil rights using third parties, private parties. For example, during COVID, they use the big tech to censor us. Now, government can't do that. Constitution prohibits it, but they were allowing big tech to partner with them at the direction of Joe Biden.
That's right.
To violate us. Here's Fauci going around the system using third parties, healthcare systems, and other grantees. I just saw the other day where I think Rubio is going to cut off some of the NGOs from getting money and have it go straight to the countries we fund overseas. I could keep going, and you know more about this than me watching the budgets. But why should there be a bigger focus on stopping the practice of allowing anybody that's not accountable from receiving these funds to pass them through? These third parties are hiding there getting around with us. And I don't know where you are on flock cameras, and I didn't bring you in here to lecture you, but the flock thing is new, and it's confronting us right now. In some ways, the data centers, the way they're partnering with government and as a sometimes third party, but that is surveillance, a Fourth Amendment violation through private sector companies, and the government's just handing people money, all little local, state governments. That's where the end run is.
One of the bills that has been introduced is to prohibit the government from buying data from private companies. Every time you use your phone, every time you use your credit card, even your automobile, if it has the modern equipment on it, is collecting data, and they're selling that data.
Well, Congress just passed a law that requires them to keep the shutdown feature on these new cars, where they can remotely shut cars down. These DUI lockout features. Yeah. I'll talk to you. I'll dig it up and show you.
Okay.
That was a big deal. Y'all just let it go through. I'm not saying you did, but there were activists that were pissed off that these manufacturing, I can't articulate it just now, requirements had a lockout feature where the car can shut itself down under certain conditions, because all the cars will be smart, and police may even have access to that to be able to shut the car down.
I thought you meant that thing with these cars where when you stop, it shuts the engine off.
That's just dumb, and it should be dealt with. Anyway, I squirreled myself back to Fauci and accountability. Where were you during COVID on taking advice from Fauci?
Well, I didn't know anything about him. And what I said, and I said this on your show, I said it on some other shows here, is that everybody needed to make an individual decision.
Yep.
And they need to do that in consultation with their doctor. That's where I was on it, because honestly, it's one of those areas where I didn't have any expertise. I was having to depend on what everybody else was saying. And I think everybody was kind of running scared, especially at the front end of this, because we just didn't know. But I now believe that Fauci knew long before President Trump knew what was going on. I honestly believe that the pandemic began months earlier than we ever started talking about it here in the U.S. And one of the reasons we think that is our intelligence agency discovered that there were over 500,000 cell phone contracts in China that suddenly went dark.
I remember that, yeah.
And we think that those were people that died, and they probably started dying in the spring of 2019.
Well, it's even earlier than that. It's 2014 when he started sending the money over there.
Oh yeah. So
And there's some reporting that he had labs in Ukraine. We were funding labs all over the world that were doing the same stuff.
doing the same thing.
Now, how does Congress ever get to the bottom of that?
You
Hard
just-
or no?
You just have to keep digging into it, and you got to find the right people that you can bring in. I know there's a lot of frustration because I have people tell me all the time, "Well, when are you going to put somebody in jail?" Well, Congress doesn't have prosecutorial authority. All we can do is refer charges to the Department of Justice. And you got to keep in mind, I've been in Congress about 11 and a half years. 6 of that was Obama and Biden, their Justice Departments. I was very involved in the investigation of Hunter Biden. I've been involved in some of this, a lot of this on the Minnesota fraud. But all we can do is do discovery and then refer those, what we find, to the Justice Department for them to prosecute. And we can recommend charges being filed, but we can't prosecute anybody. So what we did with Hunter Biden, we got him on the tax evasion because the IRS guys came up forward, but Biden pardoned him across the board on all of that stuff.
Do you think the contempt that the Senate put together last week will have legs at all? I mean, they did kind of an end run around the Senate right from the committee, but do you think that? Well, let me let you answer, and I'll give you my theory.
Yeah, he could face charges, but it's minimal. I mean,
I think it's a challenge to the pardon. I think Paul and his team think they're going to set up a legal case where they can argue that the pardon's illegitimate. You got to have a reason to argue over the pardon. So now they've got it. He's in contempt. Does the pardon cover or no? Is the pardon legit or not? I think now that could probably get a court hearing, I guess.
I don't know because I'm not a lawyer. I work for 2 engineering companies, but
Me neither.
I'm not a lawyer.
I watch Matlock, though,
Yeah,
and Law and Order.
But I do think that there's criminal exposure potentially at the state level because he did cause harm, and I think what the Senate's doing is laying a foundation that state attorneys generals could use to operate from.
Because they've done a lot of discovery and gathered a lot of evidence for them to. They've teed it up for somebody to put a case together.
Yeah. So, and I hope they do.
So did he duped? I think he duped Trump.
He duped
I
everybody.
think he duped Congress.
Yeah.
He duped the medical industry. I mean, my son's a doctor. They were going based on the guidance they were getting. They're not sitting around doing the same research. They're dispensing medicine. And so when the guy that the whole country's supposed to trust is telling the hospitals his best advice, we should be able to trust that.
Yeah.
And you can't.
And again, we used to hold the Center for Disease Control with, very high esteem. No more. The National Institutes for Health should have been doing research on, coming up with treatments and cures for cancer and Parkinson's and other things like that. You can't trust them anymore.
I always thought of them as white coat, apolitical, true scientists in some geeky lab somewhere solving disease mysteries, like in a movie. But it turns out there is political, because to get funding, Fauci had this power of this massive, what was it, $400 million at NIH? It's huge. And without his approval, if you buck him, you don't get funded. Your whole program shut down. You may not have a job. You're definitely not going to get promoted at a research institution. And there was just too much concentration of power in his position.
It's the same way with all this climate change stuff and pushing global warming, global cooling, and global everything. There was a book called Unsettled by Stephen Koonin, who was the Deputy Secretary for Energy under Obama. And his book discloses how much corruption there is in federal funded research at the college level. If you don't have a preordained conclusion for your research, you will not get funded. And we've had some folks come out and say they literally changed the results of the research so that they could get the grant.
Because the government has a desired outcome.
That's right.
Whether it's implied, and everybody in that community knows what's implied, and you want the funding. And I've talked to actual scientists that work not too far from here that say that sometimes we'll get the funding and do whatever they want with the strings, and they'll use the money for something legit, where they're trying to save people from sickle cell or some real diseases, but they got to play, they got to dance to the tune that the piper calls, or whatever that saying is.
Well, the deep state runs deep and long. It runs outside of Washington, D.C., and it's infiltrated our colleges. It's infiltrated government just about at every level.
What does Congress do about that? Y'all are in charge of the money.
Well, we've cut off a lot of it, and
the Congress has not codified some of the Doge cuts, some of the other. We got to get somebody to put that in the law to make it harder to undo.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do with a 2-vote majority in the House and then an unreliable Senate majority. That's been the frustration for us.
With a half-dead former majority leader who nobody's seen in 58 days.
Well,
What's going on?
Apparently went home yesterday.
Well, that's what they say, but they also said Joe Biden was lucid. I mean, Republicans are in the same position the Democrats were defending that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that there's a lot of us up there trying to do the right thing, trying to come up with solutions for these issues, trying to ferret out these folks that have done so much harm to us, and get us going in the right direction. I think in terms of what Trump's done with his cabinet, I've said this many, many times, it's the best cabinet I've ever worked with. But I'm telling you that we're overwhelmed with everything that we've discovered. And the opposition is unbelievable.
And just to think, we have to pay for it out of our tax money. And if we don't pay the IRS enough money, they will come and seize your whole life. And my man Perry Cronin over at Axum Tax Resolution Group can help you unwind that, because you guys, probably before your time, Gary, passed some laws that protect us from being harassed by the IRS. But you got to know what they are. And then you've got rights, too, to not be harassed. And without professional representation, the IRS isn't going to tell you that they're limited. They're just going to start threatening you. Let Perry help. He's local. He'll sit down with you face to face. He's a good man. I don't think there's anybody in this country that knows more about it than he does. So you can trust some 800 number CPA or something if you want. I'd just go to Perry, let him help make the harassment stop and get you settled. There are programs passed by Congress. The Fresh Start Initiative is one that lets you settle for as much as 80% off that liability so you can breathe again, because as soon as you get this behind you, there's another tax deadline. It's Perry Cronin. He's local. Again, sit down with him face-to-face. 205tax.com, 205tax.com. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, 527, Crocker Moving Services. Next up here on the show, crockermovingservices.com. This is how you want to move your stuff. Whether you just got a big old thing, a pool table. In my case, I had a safe that I bought on a whim. Couldn't have moved it to save my life. With every friend I have left, I could not have moved that safe. Crocker got it moved. Awkward path into my house, but they did it a few summers ago. I was impressed. I've always been impressed with Eric and his company. This is who you want moving your stuff, whether you just got a few things or a lot of things or going across the country. It's crockermovingservices.com, crockermovingservices.com. We got a call for you, Gary. I'm going to put it through. We got about a minute and a half, Katie. Go.
Yes, sir. Gary, I wanted to know if you have been made aware of some issues that our citizens have been going through that are on Medicare Advantage, and if so, your opinions on the matter. So, a lot of these insurance companies outsource their employment to other countries, and our Medicare Advantage members in Alabama are having issues with their claims being processed correctly, being handled. They are receiving a lot of inaccurate information from the insurance companies. And when the Medicare Advantage policyholder asks to file a grievance with the Medicare Advantage plan they have against the employer.
Katie, you sound pretty well informed on this. Will you do me a favor?
By these insurance companies.
Katie, I'm gonna stick you on hold real quick, Katie. We're just gonna run out of time. Katie, keep listening though. Gary's got what was it?
What I would like Katie to do is call my office tomorrow.
Yep, she can help you all out
and ask for Ethan Weiss and give us this information because it's not something that I'm really well informed on. The number, Katie, is 205-968-1290. I really appreciate it if you'd call
968-1290. And if you missed that, Katie, call us back. We'll get that to you. Y'all get together, and you might even help inform the congressional office on something you're seeing. That's how you do it. The offices really benefit from that. Gary, I appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate you having me on.
Good luck tomorrow. Back in a minute. All right, it's 5:34. What a rushed show, man. We've got a packed list of sponsors and all kinds of news with this Fauci thing breaking. Then, of course, we had 3 guests on, very rare. I wanted to keep Gary over, but it was one of those kind of equal time things. There's no real rule or law about it, but we had his opponent on for 30 minutes, so I limited Gary to 30, and we'll have him back in just to talk Congress at some point in the future. And Gary and we go way back, and I understand sometimes it takes a minute to sort of sort this stuff out. And he's a detailed guy. He's not going to rush through an answer. He's not one of these soundbite Congress people. So I want to bring him back. Let y'all get at him and call him. We do that from time to time. We call him sort of radio town halls. But there's so many questions I wanted to get into with him. But in fairness, gave the man 30 minutes. EcoView Windows and Doors bringing you the show tonight. EcoView Windows indoors. This is such a great company. You need to pay attention to your windows. If you're in an older home with single pane cracks, over time with expansion and contraction, it's just going to lose its thermal capability. And honestly, a single pane never had that much to begin with. Heat transfer through that little single pane of glass is nothing. So you're going to be a little less comfortable in the muggy summer and a little more chilly in the winter without proper windows. Now let's talk math. Becky and her team say they can save you 35% on your heating and cooling if you get your house buttoned up with them. Let them explain it. They'll come out and give you a free estimate, measure everything, give you an incredible price. And when they leave, you'll have beautiful, easy to open, easy to close. Man, when the fall gets nice, just open up all the windows and let that fresh air in. You can't do that with painted shut old school windows. Let Becky Jackson and her team improve your home. It's a good investment. Pays for itself over time with the savings on your energy bills and the wear and tear on your heating and air system. It's ecoviewwindows.com, ecoviewwindows.com. So now I'm going to switch back to the phones. You guys blew it up today. This Fauci story is electric in that it's both electric and, let me use a better word. I don't think electric's the word I wanted to use right there. It's infuriating and it's heartbreaking. Because while we get used to sanctimonious bureaucracy and we're angry at them and they all just kind of suck nowadays, it's really a lot of Washington in general. This involves people losing children to bad advice, not just innocent mistake advice, not they were doing their best judgment. Look, as I get older, I'm trying to learn to give people a little more grace. But this wasn't that. This was deception for some purpose. I think it was power. It was ego. It was control. Fauci had a big ego and really needed to keep this narrative going so he'd stay in the news. We see that from his diaries. And then we find out he knew about the miscarriages and advised otherwise. We got sound clips all over the place of him doing it. And even in this moment, I'll give a little space to some of the people downstream that had no choice but to follow what the highest paid government official was telling them. But he was lying to everybody. And he was lying on top of lying because, again, his activity caused this whole thing in the first place. What an ass. And now he thinks he's untouchable because that other senile prick, Joe Biden, who gave him a pardon. Yeah, I said it. Write it down. For a transcript of today's show, start writing because we don't provide it. Jack is on a cell phone. Jack, you're next. What's up?
All right, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, just getting it off my chest. So I lost my job. I work at a foreclosure law firm, and they had a foreclosure moratorium. So I'm in billing, so there just wasn't any work going, wasn't any. And I know that might not garner me a lot of sympathy, but I'm just saying if they can put a moratorium on something like that, they can put it on anything. And so, but also my granddad. Was always healthy, went outside, worked every day, worked in his farm. And he got the shot, and my family will tell you differently, but I got a memory like an elephant. He got that shot, had a heart attack, got a stent put in, got sepsis, and I watched him die in the hospital. And I believe it's because of the shot. And just also wanted to raise awareness that, you think, okay, the foreclosure, that probably a lot of people got by, but that's not the way a government should act on anything, So it was just kind of arbitrary, and they said,
Yep.
it destroyed an entire industry. But that's all.
Good stuff, Jack. Listen, I know people are relating to this story. It's now been back in the news hardcore for at least 3 weeks, and people are relating to the misdirection or the deception or the fraud with their own areas of it. Let me see if I can make some sense. Today, it's about miscarriages and that direct impact with studies to back it up, Fauci's duplicity, and now people who went through that were told they were crazy at the doctor's office in the pain of that moment. I've only known a few people in my life that have gone through this, and it is so heartbreaking. And so these people in their lowest moment with that kind of loss, trying to reconcile it, praying over it, searching the face of God to figure out how could this happen. And now to find out that their deepest suspicions, which they were told they were just emotional or crazy or wrong or whatever they were told, could be validated, that this did not have to happen to them. And so those people are getting hit with this news today. And we've already had some feedback from people associated with that specific part of this whole COVID fallout. Now, compound that. Let me just pile on. You've got calls like the last one that are still concerned about the heart implications. Could be wrong, could be right. Could be coincidental that one day you get a vaccine, the next day you got heart trouble. People have heart trouble, but maybe it's not. And now the suspicion, in my estimation, in those areas is only going to grow. And only if Fauci made similar comments contradicting himself behind the scenes are these people going to have a case about their area of the fraud. Does that make sense? In other words, we got him dead to rights on the miscarriages. And my experience with people has been, if they will deceive you in one area, they'll do it everywhere they can. He was probably here's what we know he lied about. We know he lied about the origin of the virus or of the disease. We know before that he lied about having a connection to it and funding it. We know the deception he was engaged in since 2014 when they told him not to fund it, and he funded it anyway through the CIA and other third parties. That's when some of this began. We've gone back now 6 years before COVID hit, and we know that he was lying and shifty and playing God. Anybody that thinks they could create something this dangerous was playing God to begin with. What an ego. And so then he runs into cover-up mode. When the thing gets out of the lab, we got all this on the record. He went into cover-up mode. He started controlling the narrative, icing out all the scientists that had contrary information, and deflecting everything away from the lab theory. And then this is advanced all the way to when we know the protocols were a lie. We found that out from the diaries. The masking, the distancing, completely arbitrary made-up theater to keep us under control during an election year when they had a bigger objective. I think he was part of that. I think he was willingly part of that. Some of it was ego, some of it was the big picture. But this guy, now we learned the most insidious, specific thing today is that he knew about the miscarriage rate and lied to the country about it. And it's quite likely, statistically and otherwise, that you've got people walking around out here with no recourse as of now, and because they lost their child or had a stillbirth, which we know escalated after this rolled out. And where do they go? They'll never get the child back. They'll probably never get that piece of their heart back. And now to compound that, for anybody that ever goes through that, that's a hole in your heart forever. And now you got to know that your sinister government was behind that loss. It's a heavy day for a lot of people. I'm trying to relate, and I can only do that as a grandfather. My kids are that age range. They were having their own kids in this era. And I'm lucky that I've got 5 healthy grandchildren. Ann is in Columbiana. What's up, Ann?
Hey, Leland. So I kind of have a question question about this. So I get he was pardoned by the government, but what's to stop people from filing civil suits against him?
Well, there's nothing to stop them at all. But you've got to have. I'm going to give you a cynical view of the whole thing. Lawyers want to know there's money at the end of the work, right? They just do. They're in a business. Some, I don't know, there may be some lawyers that don't make a lot of money out for justice for the people. They'll tell you that. But they want to know there's money. There's an insurance company or there's some place to go and get where they're going to get half of the award. And until they can identify that target, because Fauci ain't worth that much in terms of the damage. He's worth $12 million. You could clean him out with one case. But he covered. See, he was operating in his capacity as a federal employee, which creates a whole nother liability. I just think it's uphill. If you could connect the deception to where he was working, say, directly with the pharmaceutical companies, they got a liability shield from Congress, so that's going to be a hard nut to crack. So that's why so far, even with all these injury reports in these other areas, you haven't seen a bunch of class action cases because they got this liability shield, so the lawyers aren't as interested in it. There's no money in it.
So the only course of action for people are just to call their attorney general and say, like, listen, we want the attorney, we want you to file a case. They're the only ones that can, right?
Well, on the criminal side, yeah, there could possibly be state charges, and I'm not trying to play sidewalk lawyer here on the radio, but in my experience, and I've had a lot of courtroom experience as a crime beat reporter, mostly in criminal cases, where I've seen how cases are put together and what some of the standards are and what gets thrown out. So I spent thousands of hours sitting on a hard bench in a courtroom watching this stuff go down. And just from that, I will tell you, you've got to have a victim. You've got to have damage in a civil case or in a crime. You got to have something like that. Now we may have had stillborn and miscarried children. So you've got the damage now that is identified. You got to trace that back to the cause. If Fauci knew he was defrauding the public and did so anyway, now I think there could be a criminal connection back to states. In other words, he's operating in D.C., and you're not going to get a D.C. Lawyer or prosecutor to look at this. Yeah. But in Florida, where they will look at it, if there were miscarriages in Florida based on his fraud, there seems to be criminal linkage that could drag him down to the state of Florida, where you might have a shot, or the state of Alabama, where you might have a shot at a fair jury and a political trial.
So it's my understanding that there are 3 states looking at doing that. I don't know if anybody has filed anything.
Yeah, I saw that a few days ago, but Gary said he thinks, when he came in, he said he thought there were as many as 17 states looking at it.
Oh, good. Okay. I knew that they said that there were more possible, but you never know in the state for sure. Okay, well, that's just what I wanted to ask, if there was a civil suit that the actual people could file for.
Good questions, Ann.
Thank you.
Good questions. Yeah. And I still got a theory, and I'm going to give Rand Paul some credit. I can get on his case too, but by doggedly pursuing this, like we do other injustices, this is an injustice. It's no less of an injustice than all the civil rights stuff and everything else in this country, all the shame in this country, the Tuskegee experiment, all these other shameful things that have happened in this country. This is up there with them. Anybody that denies that is part of it. So we can't let it go. Rand Paul did not let it go. It's the only reason we have the phone records in the diary right now anyway, to go public. Despite Joe Biden's team's attempt to cover for these crimes and for their scheme of getting the senile bastard as to pretend to be president for 4 years, and all the damage that came from that alone, we're in a situation where there just has to be accountability, and we have to press it and keep pressing it until this old fart dies, and then anybody else that's connected to it. It'll be even harder to prove a conspiracy. I mean, Fauci wielded so much power, it's not really conspiratorial that he would put an edict out and people would follow it because they were scared for their funding. That doesn't mean they were conspirators in the knowledge that he was lying. But he was talking to another health official on the other end of that conversation who would have had this same information and remained silent and allowed the same bad advice to go forward. I'll let some smarter people than me on those issues vet this out this week, but it's what we all kind of knew for the last 6 years. We all kind of knew this. And now here it is staring us in the face. And it is really frustrating to see them get away with it. I watched Hillary get away with it. I mean, can we keep naming people that just flat did stuff that should be held accountable and just going to walk? Hunter Biden kind of walked, and he also got a pardon from the old man. And we can keep going back through history if you want to. Some people skate. There are two standards, and he was part of the power elite establishment standard, and this guy may get away with it completely. But the whole government, I was getting into this with Gary, in order to not let this happen again, we've got to decentralize the power that was Fauci's job. No one person should have this much power over a company, a country. Furthermore, we had the same issue here in Alabama with the state health officer. I don't know this Scott Harris guy, but that position should not have the power to shut the state down, even with the governor's control. No way in hell that should. And we even had this little guy in Jefferson County that had similar authority here in Jefferson County. Jefferson County had an exception where they could just, one little unelected bureaucrat could decide what business could survive or didn't survive, or what the hospitals would be able to do or not do. That's what we've got to revisit too. Even if they thought they were doing so with their best judgment, they should not have that power. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Never forget that. Danny Knowles is with the Knowles Group, N-O-L-E-S, the KnowlesGroup.com. Let Danny help you out with your retirement planning. We all plan to retire, I guess, at some point. I don't know. Some days I think I'll just work till I'm dead. But maybe not at this business, but somewhere. And you still want your money to work for you one day if you're doing it right. And whether you're starting over or you're at the other end and you have your funds, you'd like a pay raise, you'd like a little better return, talk to Danny. Lifelong friend of mine. That's the most I can tell you about him. He's a straight shooter, and he's been incredibly successful. How they do what they do, I can't give financial advice. You wouldn't want to take it from me. I just know it works. People get to know them and like them at the Knowles Group. Maybe you ought to get them to eyeball your situation as well, the KnowlesGroup.com. Reach out to them at the KnowlesGroup.com and listen to their shows on Saturday and Sunday here on the station. Also, with your money, let me talk about Stockton Mortgage. Thomas was all tied up today, but if you're trying to cash out and do some things, move your money around ahead of Christmas so you don't run up a bunch of 25% interest credit card bills. The credit card debt in this country is insane. You can get out of that situation if you've got home equity. You'd rather pay 6% back to yourself, loaning money to yourself from your equity, than paying those credit card companies that never want you to pay them back. They never want you to pay them back. It is, of course, the smart thing to do to reach out to Stockton and let those guys help you with the myriad of ways to move money around using the leverage of your home, or if you're just trying to buy a house. They're good like that. Hey, you'll talk to a real live human being on a phone. You're not going to enter a bunch of stuff and get stalked on your phone by bots and AI from now on. They'll just talk to you and start doing it back of the envelope, seeing what they can do to pull off a miracle in your life. It's Stockton Mortgage. SaveWithStockton.com. SaveWithStockton.com. Okay, so I got to be honest with the audience. I believe honesty is the best policy. I am not Fauci. I believe in honesty. I got 3 sponsors that I'm behind on. We had 3 guests in here. Man, what a news day. So I'm a little behind. If y'all abide me, listen up to these wonderful folks who keep the show going. First up, Southern Skies. This is where you want to get checked for skin cancer. Just talked to my mama yesterday. I love that the audience ask about her all the time. I think she loves it too. But she's doing great. She sounded wonderful. The battle she's had against melanoma traveling internally has gone on since the COVID days. I remember all those hospital protocols when she was going through treatment. It was during that same time period. But man, that woman's a fighter. She's the toughest person I've ever known in my life. And the modern technology, the Keytruda is what they use to keep her cancer at bay, and it is changing things in that world. But she understands, and our whole family understands, early detection is everything. You got to get into the doctor and not let it grow or go or be ignored before something pops up that could cause you that kind of trouble. So get in there and go to Southern Skies. These guys are wonderful. It's a practice dedicated only to skin cancer. Great locations around town, and Dr. Mario is just wonderful. His team, they love what they do. They love saving people. You'd be surprised when you walk out of there with an all clear, or they found something that's completely treatable, how good you feel about making that appointment. It's southernskiesdermatology.com. And then, of course, downtown is my friend Craig and my friend Keith, those guys at Birmingham Broker. Man, I was actually had my eyes on a truck the other day I was looking at, and I thought, I love my truck, but boy, that truck was nice. And I was just taking a look at it, and I'm telling you, if I ever had to sell mine, I'd do it with Birmingham Broker. If I ever do any kind of car deal, they're going to sell the one I have and get that unloaded so I can get maximum value. It's bhambroker.com, downtown Birmingham. This is what they do. They broker vehicles out into the world, get them sold, so you don't have to get a wholesale price. You get a retail price at Birmingham Broker. So y'all get in there and see them. By the way, they've opened up a little side business. It's this BB Electric Moto. These are electric off-road dirt bikes. Insanely cool. Great gift-giving idea. If you got that testosterone-filled little punk in your house that would love to do some off-road stuff, there are whole groups of people that ride these things together. Get in there and see those. I really do think this Christmas will be huge for them. This would have been the greatest thing. I would have loved one of these things as a kid. Y'all get in there and look at them. For adults, too, these are, even for women, they've got some that are styled in the way that women love them. Very cool shop. It's part of the Beham Broker complex, bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. And then lastly, thank y'all for letting me do this in this segment so I can get caught up, is FloorTech, concrete coatings. This is so essential. If you got raw concrete in a retail establishment, even sidewalks and pool areas, any place that's getting dingy, concrete's just a sponge. And this coats it so that you can clean it and protect it. And the thing about FloorTech is they are reinventing the industry. They went back to the basics, took all the impurities out that most people use in their products, and now they have a pure product that they guarantee for life. Let them come demonstrate it to you. It really is something to watch them demonstrate that. Once they're done at your house, you'll be so happy. Get to know them, local company too, floortechcoatings.com. Put a K in there when you spell FloorTech, T-E-K, floortechcoatings.com. We will see y'all tomorrow.
Goodbye, AJ.